Hey, this is Aaron with the Soft Serve Podcast. Stay with us. We have
The Cookie Snatcher.
Sweet Baby Ray.
Sweet Baby Ray. Oh, hey, so speaking of Sweet Baby, just to get right into this
Vidalia
topic.
Onion.
Let's just
Spec
get
likes
a
onions. That's tight.
right going back to the pre-show conversation we had.
Condoms.
We were talking about
Are they good or are they not?
This is we're gonna have a hard-hitting subject right off the bat. Danny, you have any opinions on this? Good, bad, in between?
Hard hitting. That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
I have a couple conflicting opinions on condoms. Personally, I don't enjoy condoms. I actually hate condoms as a subject and everything, and them as a concept. But I think condoms are actually also very good if you want to have safe sex, if you want to be protected, and if you are deciding to have sex with other people which you may not be familiar with. I think they're great. Personally, I think they're the fucking devil, though. And I think we should. I think anybody who forces you to wear a condom should go to hell.
Wow. That is.
That's I don't actually.
That's
I don't believe that.
That's a fanatical opinion.
I was gonna say I don't know.
I'm not an extremist. I just think we should burn down every condom.
Wow.
He sounds like the Catholic missionaries in Africa.
It's okay. Our Trojan sponsorship just fell through, so we're good.
And as a solution to burning down condoms, I think the government should fund more research on male birth control and implement that.
Amen.
And STD control, just eradicate STDs would be nice.
Man.
That's fanatic.
That's fanatic, eradicating STDs?
You're talking about
They're not a
eugenics
race
these
of
days?
people.
That's a theory.
But
Yeah.
you, Aaron, what's your opinion on condoms?
My opinion? No. I feel like the most important thing to do is always, obviously respect your partner and everything going into it. But definitely they suck. I'm gonna be honest. They're pretty bad.
Your partner suck? That's good.
Well, I mean,
some people actually do wear a condom when performing.
Yeah, some
Those
people do
acts.
for oral. I actually was
Never
kind of
done
curious
that.
about that because I was in Amsterdam this past winter. And I kind of thought about it. I was like, well, if they offer oral services, does
Talking
that
about
mean you have to
sex
wear a condom?
workers, correct?
I am talking about them. Yeah,
I bet.
sex workers.
I bet that they probably do.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of interesting because, like, I feel like that wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Personally speaking.
I feel like I would rather. I'd rather spend my money somewhere else. if that was the kid, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I'd rather spend my money somewhere else. I'm with you. It's definitely like a matter of consensus
Yeah.
between partners whether or not you use them, because it's definitely not something that just affects the person wearing it. But if it is, I think it's awesome when you don't have to wear it, and when you do, fucking use your imagination and hope for the best. But
Yeah.
I've never had any success.
I have.
I've never had any success wearing a condom at all. I've had the opposite. I've only gotten soft because of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've only had one time and it was successful. But I mean, contraceptive.
You said the same thing, right, Danny? I'm not crazy
No.
for having had that happen to me.
Exactly the same. Condoms make me wonder about porn and how much they actually use it or how much they don't.
I don't think I think I see a lot more, and it's kind of blunt, but I've seen a lot more bareback in porn than I have.
Yeah, but
I
Condom
think I've
sex,
seen
man.
probably about 90% bareback, 10%.
yeah, well,
with
I think
condom,
that's just
it's
what makes
very
me
rare.
curious is the whole. I think that
They have extensive testing that they go through, and and they stay on top of that shit. I mean, the more high budget and
Oh, okay, yeah, I
more
was gonna
well
say.
paid porn stars. I'm sure some of the I'm sure that's not how it is across the entire industry. I'm sure that's only some of the more probably more privileged people in the industry get to do that. But I'm just thinking of the people that I probably watch most often, and the bareback that I do see. From what I've understood, and because I have seen some interviews, I think that's pretty funny. But they talk about that. They talk about all the precautions they take simply because of the fact that they film bareback. I wonder if it's an issue for male porn stars to stay hard for an entire filming session if they're doing it with a condom. Like, I mean, it's difficult enough to have sex for 30 minutes with a condom on.
Mm-hmm.
Now try to have sex for a couple hours, changing camera angles and reshooting shit and having to do stuff over again, and it being like a job and not just.
And they do some weird fucking angles.
So
too.
maybe that's why it's more often done bareback, simply because of the fact that
Comfortability.
because the dude can't stay hard that long if he's got a condom on,
Yeah.
or it might be just the fact that it sells better.
Yeah,
It might sell better to have it be bareback. I have no idea.
I think you brought up like a really cool point about like just showing all the different things that go into like one porno thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you actually like if you take it's kind of funny and ironic if you take sex out of the of porn and just look at the industry itself and the making and process behind it. Porn is actually one of like it's always like one of the most revolutionary industries where it's always like causing disruption. It's always reinventing itself and making new ways, applying to different platforms and technologies. It's actually really funny how like evolved it is, but also like the backside of it, of all the stuff that goes into it that normally what people wouldn't think. I think from like an outsider's point of view, like it's it's just people having sex on a camera, but there's so many things that actually go into it, even if it's terrible stories and stuff like that, or fake things. I think
Nailin' Palin.
Yeah, and like even the name.
Extra sausage pizza.
Yeah, but it's funny, like with all that out there, it's like how do certain videos or websites stand out among millions and millions? I think it's a really cool if you try to not look at it in a purely sex perspective, it's kind of cool as an industry whole and how it's become so successful.
I wanted to ask a question about it today in our business of theater class. We were talking about LA, and I wanted to ask, like, do any of the people like that you knew as actors when you were working in LA, did they have offers from the porn industry? Did any of them work in the industry at all, or did they, and if they did work in it, did they, I don't know, were they like, yeah, I'm gonna do this instead of like acting, and did it work out for them?
I mean, I'm watching a show now called The Deuce on HBO, and that's kind of talking about the transition from sex working and pimping into the porn industry itself. It's very interesting. Like, I'm only on the first few episodes of it, but definitely appreciate it.
I didn't want to ask that because I was personally interested in doing that, but I asked it just out of curiosity because I was like, I wonder, because, like, I don't know, I've seen a porn video where it's at a house in LA where like the windows are open to like a part of LA that or where all the super rich people live and like where all the like nice houses are and like
West Hollywood and Beverly Hills.
Yeah, and like that's like like a common area and like people can see inside this window where like people are being filmed for brazzers fucking. And so I'm thinking, holy shit, this must be like super commonplace and like a big deal enough if somebody in the Hollywood Hills is just filming themselves fucking for, or like Brazzers is filming themselves in this like home in the hills in broad daylight. And so I was just wondering, like, is it how big is the porn industry so big in LA and in California that people that come to California looking for work in regular film, like, do they get approached often for it? Do they end up finding themselves in it at all, either creatively or as an actor?
I was gonna say, we were talking about how in the same class how actors and actresses are seeked like fairly often and serving jobs because they have that kind of like, they're cute, they're handsome, they have this kind of they're charismatic and they have this kind of charm to them. I feel like it is kind of easy to slip into, like what we were saying, it's kind of like that slippery slope where I wouldn't necessarily call porn slippery slope if you work it right, but for some of them it can be like that. But for those people that are like, I can get in, get out, it's something to do on the side. Like, I mean, exotic dancing is
the context that I was thinking about doing it in was not in the sense of like, oh, I'm doing this because I need to make money, but doing it, I guess, for the art of it and for the pleasure of it. Like, I mean, like, I wasn't thinking about it in the context of like just doing some like super low budget porn. I was thinking about like being like one of the top fucking porn stars.
I like this there too.
And like what I don't know, I guess just
I mean, Austin, like what you were saying earlier kind of got me thinking of like two things. When you were like your initial question to your teacher, like one, it makes me think, this is kind of a larger question, like I wonder how many people you've met or you're friends with that have something like that, like a side gig or something that may not be socially acceptable. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but maybe like socially acceptable or a little outlandish, that you don't know or that have done something through that and that you just haven't talked about. And then the second one that was kind of expanding on that was just like with the Hollywood thing, like think about how many things that go around you, whether there's conversations or actions that go around you that you have no idea happen. Like even if it's like right here and in the next room someone's fucking and we have no idea. Like it's funny how many crazy things go on without people noticing, and that's just like think of all your wild stories, and sometimes they were in public. Think about that happens to everyone, like everywhere at all times.
One of the thing I was thinking about was if you're in a situation where you're such a successful porn star that it's not something that anybody sees as a negative thing.
Yeah.
Like that it is your career. It like it's not just a side gig that like people find out as a fun fact. Like when you walk into the restaurant, people get a little like skittish and nervous because they're like, "Oh shit, that's the person that I pleasure myself to when I'm by myself." It's like I guess I was thinking about it in the sense of like being a porn star that is proud to be a porn star and that is like their job, and like what is that like?
I feel like a lot of more dominant people in porn are probably like that, where they're a lot more boasted. I guess personally speaking, I feel like a lot of those ones who kind of like control the whole scene are definitely going to have a lot more of that presence. I feel like the people that are more submissive aren't necessarily not proud, but aren't going to be, I don't know, just as big when they walk into a place. I feel like they're kind of like, "Oh, I'm just going to get my food, go back." And,
I think that's something kind of interesting about like what you were saying about like being proud about being like a porn star or a escort, a dancer or something like that, something that idolizes sex. Because I think traditionally they're looked down upon because like slut shaming and stuff like that and all that.
Which
like,
to hell with.
Yeah, because if the funny thing is like, so everybody like your basic needs, food, sex, shelter, like your sort of like your evolutionary,
food, sex, shelter,
like,
water.
Like, but it's funny that one that like highly promotes that, like as their job is being so skillful and one of our necessities and desires, like it's almost like honorable. It's like you are one of the best humans, or like you're one of the humans that has the best sex and like and pleasures people. Like that is your actions are so attractive to other people that millions of people pleasure themselves to the idea of you. Like that's actually really.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that the distaste toward those people is rooted in fear of wanting to be pleasured by them. Or well, not for me. Like I don't have any fear towards them, but the people that are afraid that that would make me feel good if you did it, but I would feel shame, and like I don't know. I hate that shame exists and that like. Because
shame wizard.
Because you don't need to like
Big Mouth season 2 spoilers.
You don't need to have that reaction towards sex.
Yeah.
You don't need to have that reaction towards promiscuity if it is like not negative.
Yeah.
Or if like I said not negative, but even though it's not necessarily positive, it just is. It's just something that, like you said, is one of our basic needs, and it's a glorification of that and a dramatization of that. But I don't see any reason to like be offended or sickened by it.
Are you talking about like, porn stars? Just porn stars?
But the porn but sex in general. Like people like just think about think about the average person you would encounter in your everyday life, and the disgust and distaste that they have towards the concept of sex and promiscuity and fetishes and kinkiness, simply because of the fact that it's taboo and it's uncomfortable to talk about. But I think what I'm trying to say is, and taking a long time to say, is that there should be no reason to that it should be taboo. It shouldn't. I understand that it is taboo, and I perfectly understand why it is. I just don't think, but I think the reasons that it is are silly, and I think that they're not doing anybody any good. Yeah. They're really just like I was thinking about it. Like in my personal opinion, I'm not going to tell anybody that they can't wait until marriage to have sex, but I think that that's silly. I think that before you get married and tie yourself onto somebody, you need to have an idea of what you, as a sexual being, enjoy and like. And if you try to figure that out with the person you are marrying, then you might be setting yourself up for failure.
I think that's actually a really good point. It's like having sex with a partner is a huge component about how your relationship is. Like sexual chemistry, like it's just as important as emotional chemistry. And some people would argue and say no, it's all emotional, but it's like, well, that might just be your friend then, because like you think about even like
that's
a
good
kiss,
point.
like your first kiss with someone is so important because from just that you can tell so much about your chemistry with that person, how you act with them, how you just how you work with each other, you know. And I think it's the same way with sex, is just a little step further. And especially if you're going to be doing that your whole life and you want a future with that person and you have sexual interest, like, you should know that before going in. Well, like, if that's your religious thing and that you wish not to, then whatever, you know, do your
That's
thing.
what I said. That's why it is that person's personal decision, but I think that it's ill-informed and naive, and it is rooted in their religious belief, and that's why I think it's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that people's religion fucks around their life, in the sense of their sexual development.
It's like,
because people don't develop sexually in the way that they should, in order to have the relationships that they want to have, because they put constraints on themselves with religion.
And I think, I feel like if it was more accountable towards, like, making sure people were tested, making sure people were being safe and such, like, I could get it. But it seems to me that it's primarily religious in terms of boundaries on sexual promiscuity. And it feels
it's
like...
all about control.
Yeah, it feels like it's all about control and having kind of this idea that, okay, if I can't have all this, if I don't get all this permission, then I don't think you should. And if you do it... And it seems like it's a sense of envy. It comes from a place of...
look at the people who are in charge of the religion.
Yeah.
They're virgins.
Yeah.
They're old virgins who want to tell other people how to do what they can't.
Yeah.
And so it's a very well, they do it. They just do it to little children.
Shots.
But
I'm just kidding.
yeah, it's just interesting that and think about it with like the Muslim clerics in Middle Eastern countries that oppress women and oppress the sexual freedoms of people in those countries. It's the same case as with Catholic leaders and Christian leaders.
Yeah. I don't know.
A lot of, I think it's funny that a lot of evangelical Christian leaders that are very, very anti-gay end up getting caught in a bathroom stall with a dick in their mouth.
I mean, it's kind of just like, a lot of people are just hypocrites, and it sucks because they are, when you have people who are hypocritical in power, it just, snowballs.
Yeah.
So.
I think that it's just unfortunate for a clutch of old virgins to tell other people, consenting adults, what they can and cannot do with their bodies. I think that it's just silly. Because what the fuck are you talking about, you old virgin? You don't know what sex is like. You don't have an idea. You don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. You're an old fucking virgin. by choice, by deluded choice. You have no authority to speak to me on sex education. You signed away your balls 50 years ago.
Well, which I was going to add on to is like, speaking
or
of
if
that,
you're a non-vagina.
I feel like it's weird. Like you have like these religious schools, and you wonder, even like regular Southern schools that aren't technically religious, but also have like those poor sex education classes, and they're not really informed on. And I understand how some sex ed could be too much and too straightforward, but there's a lot that still needs to be taught to kids. I feel like they aren't.
I think the main thing that we really need to teach children in sex ed about is the concept of consent. I think that is probably the most important thing, and I think that the rest of sex education has to spring from that like root of sex is something that happens between two consenting people, and like really like root in everybody who learns about sex the understanding that it is a consensual act. I'm sure everybody does already have that understanding, but I feel like if we just explicitly say it in educational settings, then maybe it'll fucking beat it into people's heads.
I'd say not only say it, but reinforce it, and also to the point that consent doesn't always have to be sex. It could be anything with how you talk to someone, how you interact with them.
Oh yeah,
and especially with younger kids, I feel like a lot of people teach consent by like asking kids if they like hugs or something like that, like if they mind touching.
Well,
and you kind of just start from little things.
And with that, like, and so when it comes to sex, it should be sex is something that you have when you are prepared to give that consent. And if you are waiting until you are mature enough, aka in your mind married, to give that consent, that's your choice. And if I choose that when I go to college at 18 that I'm going to decide to have sex with somebody, that's my choice. And neither one should be wrong.
But either side should also not look down on the other.
Yeah. Or neither one should tell the other person they can't do it. They can. I mean, you feel free to tell me I shouldn't do it. Feel free to tell me I shouldn't have sex all day long, and I will respond with why I think you shouldn't wait till marriage. We can have that discussion. We can have that argument. But don't try to tell me I can't. It's the moment where you try to like impose that that there's an issue. But when you just say, oh, you shouldn't, well, then I can just respond with, oh, well, I disagree. And that's when we have the conversation, which I personally just think that it's silly to wait until marriage to have sex. Because if you have sex with your spouse and you are left completely sexually unsatisfied, then you might be in a little bit of a
disadvantage.
It's
a little bit of a precarious situation there.
It's buying that car without going for the test drive.
Exactly. And it's not necessarily, it's no one's advocating for those people to like be with a bunch of people. They're just saying like learn before you're with that person. Not with other people necessarily, but at least with that partner.
I guess I'm not saying that like in alternative to waiting until marriage, just fuck a whole bunch of people and figure out what you like. That's not what I was saying. I guess what I'm saying is just educate yourself and be honest with yourself and
learn about yourself too.
And be open to learning and to understanding what it is that you like and what you might like. And there's no shame in the exploration of it. The only shame that exists is the phony shame that people tell you should feel, but that's not your shame to feel. That's their fear to get over.
Dan, you have anything to add to that?
No. Well said.
I feel like it's well said. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just an important topic to talk about, especially when going out and several times and just realizing, especially in terms of consent, like drinking and such, definitely kind of makes everything, ooh. That's definitely a talk, but that's a talk that like you have to, you do it in tiers. You do it with like kids and kind of slowly embed it kind of in conversation. But
and then beginning to like add in alcohol to the equation is a whole nother tangent of that conversation where I mean that's a whole nother podcast right there.
But yeah. Speaking of drinking with good friends,
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
So it was with.
I tried. Okay, that was a really.
It was probably. It was. No,
about
it was in September. It was in September of 2014. So 4 years and a month ago.
What are you talking about?
The first ever boys' night.
What's it? It's September.
Mm-hmm. It was in September. And
Wait, hold on. No, because I remember the first boys' night as the night where we all had Fireball that Danny gave us.
it was in September.
That was in September.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. We all watched Dark Crystal at the end of the night and passed out. Nothing through.
Anytime I ever tell people a story and then I'm like, yeah, that was from our boys' night, they're like, oh, boys' night, and then they like laugh about it in like as if they think they know what it means, like based on when they hear other people say boys' night.
Wait. What is the stereotypical boys' night then?
Like just hanging out with your boys
So I guess
and like.
we should say, what do you...
That's what I say. But I say, well, yeah, that is boys' night. People do have like their boys' night, but that's not why we called it boys' night.
Right.
We called it boys' night because it's a night where you specifically behave like a boy, like a moralless, like an amoral.
I think we all...
boy.
See, this is why
Yeah,
I
so
was
we
saying,
should-
I think we should...
No. It was. I mean, it was Danny who articulated that definition first in my room with Fireball in his hand. It was Danny who said that was what boys' night
Yeah.
was when we were coming up with it. I didn't make that up on my own. I had a part of making that up, but it was. I mean, Danny said that too.
Yeah, no, I'm probably most likely did.
you would defend yourself.
No, that's fine. I think...
I'm not. Yeah, I mean that's what boys' night was.
Yeah, I
it
was
might
gonna
not
say-
be what boys' night is anymore,
I
but
was
that's
gonna
what
say,
boys' night was.
I think we should go around and say what we think others think what boys' night is, and then
What it
how
should
we
be?
consider it, like now, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Like what we consider as a boys'
Austin
night.
started us off, so I'll start. Since I'm go back.
What should
to
I say?
him.
What I consider it now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, well, now I just consider it a night where, I mean, there's still that element of craziness, but I definitely am not okay with, yeah, let's go out and behave like a boy. and
not
like
boys will be boys,
because
that's
because
terrible.
Your boys will
No.
be boys.
when we originally did boys' night, like there literally was the intention of I'm going to go out tonight and I'm going to like take my values that I have as a human being and not have them. It was a fucked up thing to do, but hey, we were
You're
having
freshmen
fun
in college.
We were having fun, and it was fun. When we never did anything wrong during a boys' night. We never did anything criminally wrong. We did things morally wrong, but not. I will admit we did things that were morally wrong.
No, we definitely did criminally things wrong.
Okay, but not
Okay,
in the
we did a
aspect
lot of
that he's
things
wrong.
wrong.
Not in a felony
Nothing-
sense.
nothing
Nothing in
to-
a
oh,
felony
wow.
sense.
Okay, I never did anything I would go to jail for
Yeah.
during
Yeah,
a boys'
nothing,
night.
nothing would go to jail.
And back then, and so that's what boys' night meant then. It was literally like, I'm gonna go out and just be a boy with my boys. But
Play some
now
trades
it's
and
just it's going out and like even if it is,
Worst behavior.
yeah, it's just like worst behavior. It's like out, but just on your worst behavior, not necessarily throwing your morals out
Yeah,
the window.
no, treating people like shit.
Yeah, but just going out and just worst,
Yeah. Danny, what do you got to say? What's
Oh, I thought
what
you
you used to be
I
and
thought
what?
you were doing your...
No, I said you go.
Oh, sure. Okay. Passing the stick. Or the dick. Let's
Say it's boys' night.
boys' night. Yeah, so I think Austin has me convinced to thinking back the way I did originally now. I think when we first reinstated or whatever boys' night, it was like, yeah, because we always did Drake's worst behavior. And it was kind of like, okay, we're going to act on our worst behavior. Like every day, you're in your little thing, you're going through your routine and you're acting, you're in your own like mindset. But this is like the night where you're with your boys, your homies,
Your homies,
And-
your woes.
your woes, and your wombs, and
Wombs.
you let it all go. Like you just do whatever you want, and if you want to shout, and then if you want to like, oh god, if you want to be free, be free. Like it's your time to just be
You want
reckless.
to break into a
and-
frat house and see strippers?
Yeah, then do it. It was that time to just be like, all right, let's come together. And I think
Do you want
also
to go to a
like,
party where the floor breaks?
and I think like the thing with like being like boys, I think that it comes with like a misconception. It's like, oh, because you're saying boys' night, you're gonna do a bunch of like fucked up guy stuff. It's like, oh, only guys can do this. No, I wouldn't agree with that. I think it's the same as saying girls' night. It's like I'm gonna hang out with, and I think that's actually
Girls' night.
Yeah, it kind of comes from that thing of being like, oh, it's girls' night or it's like guys' night as being like,
because several boys' nights have included girls.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is like every boys' night is consistent of the same crew, and so
Those are girls' night.
yeah, so it's like basically that night, while there might be other people around, that night is focused solely on making sure that group of friends, which is mostly happens to be guys, which just happens with a friend group, is like having fun, being wild, but also supporting each other and having like an exciting night to like together.
The last boys' night, I swallowed my vomit 3 times at the bar. I threw up in my mouth 3 times and had to swallow it.
Is that the last one?
Because I forgot the ye old rule: beer before liquor, never sicker.
I thought Zach was in the last boys' night.
When he came back.
Yeah.
Oh, so the one before that then.
Okay.
The one before that. Actually, never mind. Edit this out. I don't want to talk about this.
Sure. But yeah. So I guess it's my turn to talk about it. I mean, what it used to be to me was always like, we do drink, like do the drinks. Usually take a few shots.
Consume alcoholic beverages.
We would give a speech, always a song, and we didn't really have goals, I'd say.
No, we did. We set goals every time.
Really?
Yeah.
Remember
During the speech.
In our speech, we would set about 1 or 2 goals.
Yeah, we usually set a goal or two.
But the first night we like did a whole bunch of stuff that was not planned. There was a whole bunch of stuff that just happened.
Yeah, all that first night was entirely just chaos. But no, most of the other nights we usually had plans. We would always say like, oh, we're gonna do this, maybe this, and do this, and we were like, okay, we go out, and then we come back. So originally I always thought it was a fun way of like trying to do new things, specifically that we couldn't do with the rest of our friend group. Not specifically because they wouldn't allow us. They probably wouldn't allow us. But also just because it was nice to just do...
Because we were free from their judgment while we were doing it. Because, like, when they were all there, we could, like, just see them judging us.
And it wasn't even just the things that we were doing were inappropriate. It's more so the things that they weren't comfortable with, maybe.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of what we did when we were out together was kind of just like, oh, whatever, let's be stupid. We're young. Who cares?
Yeah, because we were always about just making each other laugh.
Yeah.
And just being funny just amongst the 3 of us. And that was absurd and kind of like off-putting to people who weren't part of that. And so when we were out with the larger group,
the storm. Oof.
And like
shivers.
and we behaved like that, I think we probably kind of like isolated the rest of the group.
We didn't do them all that often, though.
No, but not that we did all that often, but in those moments.
Oh, no.
Like, we kind of closed ourselves off from them into our own little, like, goofy bubble to where all they could really do was just look at us and be like, what are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, led us to be like, well, let's go do our own thing. And eventually, contributed to the split up of the group.
Yeah. But, I mean, nowadays, I think guys' nights changed a lot, and I think it's kind of sucks for me. I mean, we are a lot older, but I did kind of miss the whole aspect of just going to random parties and shit, and just getting, like, invited just because of pure, like, bullshitting, silver-tonguing, and, like...
It seemed like that was only possible when we were freshmen.
No, we did it for a couple of years.
I was going to say when we were freshmen and sophomores, but, like... As juniors, seniors, and then as super seniors, and we haven't looked, but I'm kind of under the impression that it's. I mean, do you guys think VCU has changed like that much since we've been here? Because like in my mind, it seems like at least like the party atmosphere has gone from when we first got here. If you walked around at night, you could find a party, and you could get in. But now it seems like there are a whole bunch of parties happening, but they're all exclusive.
I think that just has to go with us growing up and
You think
different stages of our life. And because just think of like freshman year, everybody was in dorms and they were all together. And then when you were a freshman, you most people didn't have access to alcohol and stuff like that, and what you kind of had these groups and posses, like you see them come around like a whole a flock of freshmen, like, and you know it because it's a bunch of people that are, you know, they're having fun with each other.
Two of them has phones
they're
on.
not all comfortable, yeah, and then like I think there's a difference too. I think genders are mixed a lot more and everything like that, and you kind of have to rely on that to get into
your
places.
ratio.
Yeah, and you just wander around. Like after freshman year, I didn't have the patience to just wander around, and
I think that's what it was. I think
But you also had the confidence to walk into any place you went to.
yeah, but the thing about
or
that
pretended
too
we did.
is after freshman year, most people in sophomore year they get their own places, and so that's when house parties were booming is sophomore year. And
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I didn't even think about the fact that like we stopped going to random places and started going to specific places.
And then after that, after people were kind of tired of having house parties, kickbacks became a thing. And I feel like the older you get, it goes from random people ragers to house parties,
and now we go to bars,
kickbacks, to bars, and then like when we get older,
back
it's
to kickbacks.
Well, kickbacks or dinner at people's
dinner
houses,
parties,
things like that, or going to events and stuff like that. I think it's just an evolution of how you go out. But I think you can always go back. Like
I hated cha-chas. I hated it.
Yeah.
I mean I may have had fun if it wasn't as crowded. I think it was just the fact that if I buy an alcoholic fucking beverage, I want to get drunk off my alcoholic beverage. I don't want to have to fight the entire time I'm in the club to keep my drink from spilling, especially when it's my own friends knocking my drink out of my hands. Like, I mean, our own crew members, man.
Our own woes.
Like our own woes. Fucking getting
crunk?
Getting drunk and not paying attention to what they're doing and fucking smacking my drinks.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was getting really, really bothered, and I felt like I felt like I was in an environment where I couldn't say anything. I couldn't be like, hey, like, watch it, because I mean, I want to let them just have fun, but I couldn't have fun. And then like, I would go and I'd try to like go over in one area and dance, and I would just get closed in by like people, and I just wouldn't be able to move, and I was just like, fuck it. And then I tried to like go back over where we were, and I would be like in our group for a second, and then that one girl that was the significant other of Quincy's friend, she had a little bit, she had a lot, and she was, dancing around and like taking up a whole bunch of space, and she kept fucking hitting my drink, and she I couldn't establish any like semblance of this is where I'm gonna stand, this is where I'm gonna dance, this is where I'm gonna just like be able to sip my drink for a second. Like, you couldn't do that at all. It was fucking horrendous, man.
I think that's we talked about this.
Especially when your friends are the ones that like do it and they like don't even care.
Was that
like,
me? I feel like it was probably me.
No, I mean, I mean, I was just getting real. I think at least like a quarter of my drink, like the whole like top of my drink,
spilled.
It was like all over my arm, and like I was wearing a gray shirt.
In my jeans.
Yeah, it didn't. None of it got on the jeans.
Yeah, of course not.
But,
my jeans.
Yeah, but I had a whole fucking splash across my gray shirt that just was there the whole rest of the time.
Yeah, I think that goes a lot with. We actually had a similar conversation at the beginning of this, not this podcast, but a podcast we had before about like what's your best part of your social situation, and I think that's where like some people differ, because I think like you and I think you and I differ on that, where we like a lot of the same social situations, but I feel like you thrive more in like a kickback or something. It's very relaxed.
No, I feel extremely uncomfortable in kickbacks.
Really?
I don't like them at all. I don't like being in an environment where I'm sitting around a small living room with 15 people. I make one joke that like is not funny, and then the entire room doesn't like me. Oh, I've been to so many kickbacks, or just been in so many like where I just feel I feel incredibly uncomfortable at kickbacks, because it's usually like a majority of people I don't know. Fuck it, I'm gonna say this. I'm a straight passing white male, and that is in itself offensive to people. And I see the way that the more like super progressive dye your hair fucking purple, people look at me with disdain, and they're usually the people that are at these kickbacks, and I don't have any ill will towards these guys. I honestly am here at the kickback because I want to be able to hang out and talk and like be able to engage with you guys, but like they just don't communicate back to me. And I have felt very uncomfortable at a lot of the VCU kickbacks because of that crowd of people doesn't open itself up to me. And then I've also found that I'm more of a like big ass party, fucking everybody jumping up and down, going crazy. Just watch out for my drink. That's all. Just watch out for my drink.
The story.
I fucking hate kickbacks just because usually I just don't fit in. I think that's the main thing. Is usually with a big crowd, I can disappear, man. I can disappear, and nobody sees me, and I can just have fun. But when it's a kickback, I'm right fucking there, and
dick out.
And I can just
dick out.
I guess just when you
Slapping that meat.
I just in that environment I can
Everyone's
see
staring at it.
I can see how people see me.
Well, I wonder.
And it makes me so fucking sad and uncomfortable, and I'm like, I didn't do anything. I didn't ask for this.
I wonder if your like negative opinion towards that is more centered at the VCU social crowd rather than like if you were to do that at another.
Oh no, it's the same. Like,
really?
I mean, like.
Well, I'm saying the feeling
replace
of
the
judgment. And
replace the VCU crowd with the kind of crowd I went to high school with, the more upper class white people.
Yeah.
I feel even more ostracized in that crowd. I feel even more looked down on. I feel like every time they look at me, they see that trailer park baby.
We'll say if it's a group of your friends.
Well, that's different.
That's what I mean.
That's a chill. That's I mean that's like a chill sesh. That's you're all hanging out. You're in your space. But like a kickback at somebody else's crib.
Yo, bro, let's go to that kickback on 3rd Street. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah. When I hear that, I get anxious.
I hate that,
yeah. Whenever anytime we've ever gone to kickbacks and it's been like a small group of people, most of them I didn't know, and then like. And usually, like, you guys are there, and, like, I'll, like, make a joke with y'all, or even try to make a joke with the room that's something that is funny. Is not even something problematic. It's just something that's, like, funny, but just... Maybe I'm just, like...
Not paranoid?
Maybe I'm just dumb and don't know it. And just like maybe I'm just dumb and don't know it, and like the way I say things just sounds really stupid and just isn't funny, and I just think I'm funny, and am just like kind of confused when other people don't think I'm funny.
Yeah, I tell dad jokes all the time, and people tell me I'm not funny. I'm like,
But,
that joke was hilarious.
Well, no, I guess
I'm
it's,
telling you that right now. You don't have to guess anymore.
I think
I
I
Do you
might.
get what I'm saying though? Like
No,
about that specific crowd and how like. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever felt that with,
No, I'm
with
hilarious.
that crowd.
No, I walk into a room and I control it immediately.
Awesome. That's
I don't know.
No,
maybe that's just me, maybe I'm even making it up.
It's
but-
actually funny.
You talk.
Well, thank you, because I control the room. See,
I just gave you permission, asshole.
so no, like when you're talking about like, I can kind of see how the kickback thing is uncomfortable because you have to know at least 50% of the room for it to even be somewhat enjoyable, really.
And I don't mind meeting new people.
No, and I'm not saying that. That's what I'm saying. Like if you know at least 50%,
It's just hard.
you're comfortable knowing the other 50%, and especially if they are already comfortable with you, because that makes it easier. You feel like something about their personality is attracted to the person you're there for, anyways. So obviously there's some compatibility.
I'm just a very specific human being. I'm a very like specific cartoon character of a person, and I can put on the mask, but I don't like to, especially when I'm out like trying to have fun, like on the weekend, and it's if it's a kickback and I'm drinking. So when I'm in that environment, I want to take the mask off and just be myself. But and you guys know me. I'm a very open and honest and just expressive human being, and like, and I guess I've become conscious of how off-putting that is to people, specifically how off-putting I can be to people, and
About being comfortable or about being just how?
no, just me being myself at a kickback,
Just too bodacious.
I've just noticed how me being myself has made other people look at me sideways.
Mm.
Look down at me. But I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not misbehaving. I'm not on my worst behavior.
Right.
I'm just being Austin. I'm
Right.
just talking loud, doing a funny voice here, laughing real hard at this point, doing this here, and it's just, I guess, at a kickback.
Like,
I guess most of the kickbacks I've been to, I do that, and I just see somebody look at me sideways, and I'm like, oh, well,
Throws you off.
yeah.
fuck me, I
The
guess.
biggest thing about Austin is Austin's a free thinker, and like, is that not allowed in America these days? Because
Yeah.
some of his
Did you wanna say
ideas,
so?
No, seriously, because some of his ideas differ from yours. You have to right away
He's reading.
throw him into like a mental health corridor that there's something wrong with him.
He's reading.
You're
that-
speaking as though I'm like a right winger.
No.
No,
He's reading.
I'm just saying,
he's reading
just
it.
because you think different or you have different views or you have different jokes that people think are funny, it doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It's just different. Or,
Well, I think that just comes from people.
And he's, oh no,
Yeah. See, he's reading a quote. I knew it.
that's from Kim Kardashian West talking about Kanye West.
Thank you.
Mm.
I knew it. Anyways, what I was gonna say is like,
She actually had a good tweet the other day, and I was trying to refer to that because it was actually a good tweet,
well, I mean,
not a bad.
yeah, I could see how she'd actually have somewhat of an intelligent thing to say, but that also believing that comes from stepping off her moral high ground. At a certain point, you have to allow people to be people and understand that they're just as human as you are. They have faults. They have things that they may understand differently than you do. You can't just be upset at people for the sake of believing that you're right.
Yeah, I guess maybe the reason why it bothers me so much when I am myself and I see people have that reaction to me being myself, the reason it bothers me so much is because I know that I always have the benefit of the doubt for other people when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, countless times have I seen somebody really being themselves in a moment, and I've creepily looked at them as they didn't know I was looking at them, and just been like, wow, look at that person just being themselves in this moment.
I do that all the time, and it's gonna sound weird, but like sometimes someone will trip over a rock or something, and then you'll see them like kind of like that. It's a weird moment of vulnerability that you see in some people where they like actually act like not composed. Like you kind of see
Yeah.
that loss of composure, and it's like,
Yeah,
shit,
so
that person just fucking tripped on a brick, and then she stopped. She actually laughed at herself. It's funny.
Yeah, I guess it's just interesting that there are people who have a reaction of adoration towards moments where people are themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they look at that and they say, "Oh, that was cool. That's beautiful. That's what life is."
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people who laugh at it.
Yeah.
And there's people who say, "Oh, that's weird. That's creepy. That's strange. I don't like that."
And of course, I feel like there are definitely absolutes where it comes to like, okay, that's not okay. Like there's certain limits. I think. I mean, even then, it's still moral
Which
gray.
surprises me that opinion would come from like the VCU crowd, because you would assume that like the VCU crowd would be the most open and accepting of what was wild and crazy.
Yeah.
But it is surprisingly
Elitist.
Autocratic.
Yeah.
I would just say, like, it kind of goes to the point that, like, this isn't a negative thing. Everybody's a hypocrite, and everybody does the thing that they hate the most. And so, like, everybody hates when people judge them. That's just a normal thing. Nobody likes that. But then we judge others for judging.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's human nature to judge something or to say, I don't like this.
The fact that gossip is even a big
Yeah,
thing should
and
show
so
many people that.
I think I think you should understand that everyone probably comes from a good place, but I think
you mean you mean like they have no ill will?
Mostly, I think most people come from good intentions, but I
Right.
think the thing is is that, do you want to surround yourself with that, or is that something like maybe you wouldn't do that, but just be like, okay, like if someone fucking what do I want to say? What's an example of something that you might judge someone for wearing, like having dyed
Crocs.
hair,
Oh.
Crocs or something like say Crocs.
Yeah.
You might look at that and say, ew, who the fuck is gonna wear Crocs? I do, but like, who the fuck would wear Crocs? Like that's shitty as hell. Like, and that's just a natural thing, and you're gonna judge someone from that. And at the same time,
Like
you're
the
gonna-
cowboy boots I have on.
yeah,
Like,
You don't tuck your pants into them though. That's the only thing I'd say.
yeah.
no, yeah, I'm glad I don't tuck my pants to them, but I there are definitely, I've had to like get over when I put these cowboy boots on, thinking about the fact that other people might look at them and think that they're weird.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
that's
where's your
that's
spindle on
That's
them?
just gonna happen. That's what you mean, the spindle. You mean the spur.
The spur, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I wear them because I had them when I was a little kid, and they're
Yeah.
nostalgic, and they're sort of like a reminder of who you are. But they are something that's just like a little thing in daily life that like you get judged about, but you just have to be like, fuck it. I mean, that's just a person just being like, what are they wearing?
Yeah,
I don't think that.
What are those?
In that
It's
way,
just
I
a
think
what-
we just need to judge our judgments, weigh them out, and which ones matter and which ones don't. Because some judgments aren't like.
And the boots. That's a judgment
Yeah.
that doesn't matter.
It's entirely
That's just silly.
Be constructive. When you're talking about someone, don't just say something to belittle them. Say something to encourage them. Not necessarily encourage them, but like to be like, okay, this is a certain choice you have. Why do you make that choice? What could you do differently? Do you think that this would like change anything for the better? Kind of just like
or like
having.
if someone's judging you too. It's
Yeah.
like if someone says, Danny, you're a how do I say, what
You look like you're not
a
allowed at schools.
You're a cocky asshole. You're a cocky asshole. Like, is their judgment true? Is it based on evidence? Is their judgment worth my time? Like, if I am, does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like stuff like that.
Well, there might be an appropriate way to like have that conversation.
Yeah.
Like maybe if I approached you and was like, "Hey, Danny, in certain situations you behave this way and it makes me feel this way."
Yeah.
That's just like the constructive way of saying you're a cocky asshole.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it kind of have the same like result? Would you feel the same way if I said either one to you? If I were like, "Dude, you're a cocky asshole," and like, and then if I said, "Hey, dude, you make me feel this way when you do this," like, would you have the same reaction to
No,
both?
completely different.
You'd have okay.
Well, and then
Because if one person says you're a cocky asshole, personally that feels like a threat because you're just saying that's just an insult.
Mm-hmm.
You're just saying, hey, you're a cocky asshole. While the other one, you're coming from a place where you're saying, you've been acting this way, and I may not understand it, or I feel this way, and that's why I'm approaching you. And because when you're coming from that, like you said, it's constructive. You're working towards something, or you're working towards something, whether it's to change that behavior, or to understand it, or to accept it. But from the other point, all you're doing is throwing an opinion out there without anything, and that leads the other person to interpret it any way they feel or they want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are people though that you could say it in a constructive way, and they you won't have any progress.
Yeah.
There's.
Well,
I'm thinking about my dad.
Mm.
There are things with my dad that I want to say, "Hey, this is something that you do. This is how it makes me feel." And blah 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 blah. And as opposed to saying, "You're a this," or "No, no,"
Yeah.
But I'm utterly convinced that both would have the same result, because I mean they wouldn't have the same result necessarily, but they would.
Yeah.
Like one would have a very explosive immediate result. The other one would have denial, explosive result. So it all would lead to the same place. So what I'm saying is that there are going to be people in your life with which you cannot,
Yeah.
talk to
I think
and
that's
like
the thing. Their
reach something, and that's kind
strategies,
of
their
sad.
tactics.
But
It's not a solution.
Well, I think the point is a repetitive dialogue, but at the same time, you have to realize people are a product of their environment. They're a culmination of media, friends, family, TV,
Uprising, genetics.
uprising, location, economy, socioeconomic status, like I was saying. And
Did you say uprising?
Yeah, he said uprising. And I'm just like,
Upbringing.
yeah, upbringing.
Was my uprising?
Your revolution.
No, but
Your personal
you
revolution.
can't be enough of a voice against all of that, especially at someone at 40. Like that's too much of a change to make at that age. I feel like, and a lot of people
No,
are gonna.
I would disagree with that.
No, I'm not
completely.
saying for everyone. I'm saying specifically
Some
for most people.
Well,
It's-
you also
it's-
you kind of wish that like you had done it when you were younger, but
Yeah.
also you were a kid. So what did you know?
Yeah.
How did you have the knowledge base to articulate
or self-reflect.
to articulate in an effective way to them?
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a time when I was a kid where I noticed that my dad was just being like disproportionately aggressive and mean compared to how he had been before. And like he was just always just like rude in how he would like say stuff and like just like snaps. And I remember him saying something one day and me just being like, "Oh, I just don't understand why you're a dick all the time." And he exploded. And I wonder what would have been the best way as a kid to have said that to him.
Oh, sometimes even if you use the best way.
I know that's what I'm saying.
That's
What would have been the best way at 13 or 14 to have said, "Hey, Dad, this thing that you do, it makes me feel this way."
I think that's just saying where everything's in a relationship, everything's a two-way street. So you put your effort in while doing the best way of trying to make someone understand something, and at the bottom of the day, if they're not giving that energy and trying to understand that, then it's you do the best you can, and sometimes that's all there is. Sometimes if you can give your effort and you can put all the logic into something, and then some people will just say it doesn't mean you're right or you're wrong. It just some people say no, I don't agree with that, and that's it. And that's sometimes you have to accept that, which it sucks, but it just.
I mean, because you
what
have
it
to,
is.
like you were
Yeah.
saying, like at the same time, you have to accept that maybe you're not
People are
necessarily right, and
Yeah.
also you're just maybe they're just not gonna listen, and it sucks because that's just how things are. But at the same time, you
That's life.
keep moving
Yeah.
forward.
Not everyone thinks the same, and that's why we have problems, and that's why we judge people. But that's also how things are thought out, and that's
Yeah.
why.
It's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And actually not so much in the context we've been talking about. Like I mean, it's interesting to like think about the sort of conversations you want to have with your parents that you realize that you can't really have because you haven't quite figured out how to approach them about it.
And it's just with that parent-son like
Yeah.
dynamic.
I mean, even if it's not like an active issue, even if it's not something that like is happening and that is bothering you, even if it's just something like, "Hey, this happened, let's talk about it." I mean, it's interesting to consider how do you do that. But the thing that I've been thinking about so often lately, and Danny kind of hinted to it, and this also kind of ties into my parents, but the people who are on the other side of the political spectrum who believe really, really like heinous and like really like uninformed things, and they believe their whole political ideology is based in total untruths and propaganda. How do you have conversations with those people and convince them of the facts? Because these are people that have had years and years and years of information that just satisfied a confirmation bias. And they like believe to their core things that are just untrue. How do you convince those people of the truth? How do you articulate in a way that will get through to them? That's something that I've been thinking about so much lately because it's very, very important. Because it's very unfortunate that a large percentage of this country just does not understand the basic fundamentals of our country, the situation that it's in, and the different issues revolving around individual policy questions. And how do we reach those people? How do we have conversations with those people where they leave that conversation saying, "Oh, I was misinformed. I was led astray. Damn."
I personally do not think you're going to get that across, not necessarily lower class, but kind of the like uninformed group, like I guess the lower intelligent. But it's hard calling people lower intelligent because I don't really like to believe that.
I don't believe that they're stupid.
Yeah,
That's the thing. I don't
really
believe that they're dumb. I believe that they are victims of decades worth of propaganda
And ignorance.
and lies and purposeful misinformation. And it's very, very unfortunate. They could be very, very intelligent people individually, but collectively they've been made to believe absurdities. And people that can make you believe absurd things can also make you commit
absurd things.
atrocities.
Yeah.
I think I have two things to say with that. One, I think the whole thing with like, I don't think you should ever try to convince someone to think something. I think
You shouldn't tell them what they're thinking is.
I think you should try to inform them why you think the way they think, why you think the way you think, and then have them
Way the good.
question themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we have a unique situation where we have to let people know that the reason that they believe what they believe is because they've been misinformed. I can go down the list of Republican opinions and tell a Republican why they believe that and trace it back to the propaganda that led to that opinion. And I can trace back this lie about budgeting and caring about the deficit and trace it back to this dirty Republican trick that they use to trick voters.
And that,
There's so many different things that one specific area of the country has been using misinformation, and you can literally point out all of those areas and hopefully convince somebody that is of those opinions that they are based in lies and in propaganda and in an effort to cloud people's minds as to what the truth of matters actually are.
and that fits perfectly with my second point. And this kind of goes full circle with our
There's
opinions.
no way this.
No,
okay,
it
full
does.
circle to
It
the
goes
beginning.
with
I
our
thought you were saying
opinions.
full circle to the beginning of this episode.
No, it does with condoms and with condoms and having sex before marriage, and that has to do with religion, and because I think thinking about the other side of it too, every opponent like I love thinking like never underestimate your opponent, and I always like to think that your opponent is just you or a better version of you, and trying to, and so in the same aspect is half the time when we say the other side, whether it's political or an argument, is they're saying like they're uninformed or they're misguided or stuff like this, but 99% of the time they full-heartedly, just as much as you, believe the same thing about yourself.
And I think the most important.
I guess where I think you don't understand what I'm saying is that when it comes to the political opinions that I have, they are. I agree with what you're saying, where that person believes that they're rooted in actual facts, but I can point out how they aren't.
So are you
They
saying
can't, like, that's what I'm saying is I can look at the things they believe and I can show them how the things that they believe, although they believe that it's true, are not. But they can't take the things that I believe and show me that they're not true, because the things that I believe are based in actual empirical evidence, in believing things because they're true, not because they make me feel good. And I understand the point you're trying to make, Danny, but it's a false equivalence.
Well, I was going to say, stepping on that, a lot of people have different ideas where it comes to economic politics and social politics. I feel like where he's coming from, if you were to talk about it specifically, social politics are a very difficult thing to actually have.
No, I think both.
No. Economic policy. I mentioned deficit.
That's what I'm saying. I think economic policies are definitely a concrete thing, but social politics are very I wouldn't say you could
Oh,
say.
you mean in the way that like you can point? Yeah, I get
Yeah.
what you're saying. That like when it comes to like the Republican opinion on abortion, I can't look at the Republican opinion on abortion and say you believe this because of this propaganda reason. But I can point out other things that
that's what I'm saying.
they believe. I agree on the social basis, but on
Okay, yeah, so the last thing I was just gonna say with that is even with like the notion of facts, it's just like too, it's like this is the whole thing with like fake news.
I guess Danny, I cannot respect an opinion that is rooted in untruth. I can't, just because somebody believes something really hard doesn't mean I have to respect it.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is like, so
you said that there was an equivalence between the two because of that fact.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is everybody gets their facts from somewhere, and but what I'm saying,
some people get them from actually looking at evidence, and some people get them from things that just make them feel good. You can't subjectify facts, dude.
Wait.
Facts are.
Well, that's not always true, because sometimes you get facts from a certain study, right? And sometimes studies are done
and look at where those studies are done, and look at who does the studies. Okay, Danny. This is the point we're gonna finish on. Donald Trump points out studies when he talks about how he believes that climate change is not being affected by mankind.
Okay.
Those studies are false. Those studies are done by scientists that are paid to produce false information. So, although somebody might say those are facts, they are facts from an unreliable source. But the facts that support climate change, the empirical evidence that supports climate change, is from people that are reliable. I understand how to differentiate between sources that are reliable and sources that are unreliable. I am able to look at the Republican platform and the Republican Party over the past 30 years and literally trace to the source how unreliable the facts are. And I am able to trace the progressive opinion back to its root and understand that it is rooted in something that is based in empirical evidence.
So
There is a clear difference between where one fact comes from and where another fact comes from.
Yeah.
And so basically, to wrap things up, do your own research and actually look into the sources you're looking at. Thank you today. This has been the Soft Serve Podcast. Ooh, stumbling over my words already. And today we had
The Cookie Snatcher.
Donald J. Timbers.
and your lovely host, Aaron. We hope to see you all some other time or something like that. I don't know.